The wind howled through the broken metal structures of Velkara's dust zone. Sand covered the old mining roads, and pieces of war-damaged machines lay half-buried in the dry earth. The planet was supposed to be under ceasefire, but everyone knew the truth. Velkara was still dangerous. Raynor walked slowly, his eyes scanning the horizon. His armor was scratched and marked from many battles, but he stayed alert and calm. Behind him followed Kalari, a Larosan medic with soft, pale blue skin and calm violet eyes. Her small figure seemed out of place in the harsh landscape, but she moved with quiet purpose. They were part of a small mixed-unit patrol, sent by the Human-Larosan Alliance to scan an abandoned facility. Rumors said rogue droids left behind by retreating enemies were still active in the area. Raynor glanced back at Kalari. "You all right?" he asked, his voice quiet through the comms. Kalari nodded, holding a medical scanner in one hand. "Yes, but something feels strange here. The energy readings are not normal." He didn't like the sound of that. Still, the mission had to be done. The others in the team were checking a nearby ridge. Raynor and Kalari were to inspect the storage depot. As they reached the large steel doors of the depot, Kalari stepped forward, placing her hand on a scanner pad. The door opened with a rusty creak, revealing rows of broken crates, power cells, and torn fabric. Suddenly a loud beep echoed through the room. Kalari's scanner flashed red. "Movement! Incoming from the south!" Raynor turned, already pulling out his weapon. "Back, get behind cover." The wall behind them exploded, sending pieces of steel flying. Red laser beams lit up the air. Enemy drones, 3 of them, hovered through the dust, weapons charged. Raynor grabbed Kalari's arm and pulled her behind a crate. "Stay down," he shouted. Kalari crouched beside him, her hands shaking slightly. "They're rogue combat drones, no friend or foe recognition." Raynor didn't answer. He was already moving, firing short bursts at the nearest drone. It spun in the air, dodging fast. One of his shots hit its side, but it kept coming. "They're targeting you," Kalari cried. "No, they're targeting both of us." Raynor knew they had limited time. His shield generator was still active, but its charge wouldn't last long. Another blast hit the crate, breaking it apart. Kalari stumbled back. One of the drones aimed directly at her, its red beam ready to fire. Without thinking, Raynor jumped forward. He threw himself in front of Kalari as the laser shot hit. Pain exploded through his side. His armor cracked, sparks flying, but he didn't fall. He turned and fired at the drone point blank. The machine burst into pieces. Raynor dropped to his knees, clutching his side. Blood dripped from under the armor plates. Kalari rushed to him, her hands glowing faintly as she activated her medic tools. You took that from me." "I had to," he whispered, his voice tight with pain. "You don't carry a weapon." She looked around. "We can't stay here. More could come." She helped him to his feet, his arm around her shoulder. They moved slowly, exiting the depot through the side door and making their way into an old storage tunnel. Inside the tunnel, it was dark and quiet. Kalari lit a small lamp and guided Raynor to a corner. He sat down heavily, breathing hard. Kalari opened her medical pack and began removing the broken parts of his armor. Her hands were gentle but fast. "The burn is deep," she said. "I need to stop the bleeding." Raynor smiled weakly. "Good thing I brought a medic." Kalari didn't smile back. Her eyes were full of worry. "You risked your life." "Better mine than yours," he said simply. She didn't understand it fully. In her culture, medics were protected by rules. They were not meant to be targeted. But she realized those rules didn't mean much in a place like Velkara. She worked. Kalari whispered something in her language. A soft hum followed, and her hands glowed brighter. Her race had some healing energy, passed through touch. She didn't use it often. It drained her, but this time she didn't hesitate. Raynor's breathing calmed slightly. He felt the warmth spreading through his side. "You're doing something," he murmured. "I'm helping," she said quietly. Outside, the night winds grew louder, carrying the faint sound of metal moving in the distance. But inside the tunnel, Kalari continued healing the human who had jumped in front of death to protect her, and she made a silent promise, whatever it took. She would not let him die. Raynor lay on the cold floor of the tunnel, his breath slow and shallow. The wound on his side still burned, but the pain was starting to fade, thanks to Kailari's soft healing touch. Her hands, glowing with light blue energy, moved gently across the damaged skin, closing the worst of the injury. Kailari sat beside him, her back against the wall. Her face looked pale under the small lamp, and her hands trembled from using too much energy too fast. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Outside the tunnel, the wind roared again. Something metal scraped across the rocks. Another drone, maybe. More. The enemy was still searching. Kailari leaned closer to Raynor. "We can't stay here long. They'll find us." Raynor opened his eyes, his voice weak. "I can still move. Just need a little rest." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, don't push yourself. You lost too much blood." He gave her a faint smile. "You're a tough medic." She looked away, her thoughts turning to the moment he jumped in front of her. That memory replayed in her mind again and again, the laser beam flying at her, and Raynor blocking it without even thinking. It should have killed him, but somehow he stayed standing until he took the drone down. "I don't understand." She whispered, "Why did you risk everything for me?" Raynor closed his eyes. "Because you matter." That answer didn't seem enough to her. Where she came from, warriors and medics stayed in their roles. Protecting someone outside of your role was rare. Her people respected order, structure, and caution. Raynor was different. He opened his eyes again. "How long until help arrives?" Kailari pulled out the small beacon device from her pack. It blinked red signal weak. "I sent the distress call," she said. "But the mountains around us are blocking the signal. It might take days. Maybe even longer." Raynor gave a slow nod. "Then we'll need a plan." Kailari didn't speak. She looked down at her hands, still glowing softly. Her energy was almost gone. She needed rest too. But she didn't want to close her eyes. Not while Raynor was still hurt. She pulled out a thermal blanket and wrapped it around him. Then she sat beside him, listening for any signs of movement. Outside, the silence in the tunnel felt heavy. Raynor turned his head slightly. "You ever camped like this before?" She smiled a little. "Not exactly. I was trained in clean clinics and medical centers. Not this." "Welcome to the human side of survival," he said softly. "We improvise." They both fell quiet again. But the silence wasn't empty now, it was shared. Kailari remembered her early days in training. She had never trusted humans back then. Her teachers had warned her that humans were too wild, too unpredictable, but Raynor had proven them wrong again and again. This wasn't the first time he'd saved her, but this was the first time he'd nearly died doing it. "I owe you," she said, her voice quiet. "You don't owe me anything," Raynor replied. "I do," she said firmly. "You could have let me take the hit, but you didn't." "That's not how I work," Raynor said. "If I can protect someone, I will." Kailari didn't know how to reply to that. It wasn't logic. It wasn't strategy. It was something else, something deeper. Hours passed. The air grew colder. Kailari used what little heat she had left in her gear to keep the small space warm. Raynor drifted in and out of sleep, waking sometimes in pain, other times just to check if Kailari was still there. She was always there. By morning, the outside world was still dangerous. The drones hadn't returned yet, but she knew they would. Kailari stood slowly, stretched her legs, and looked through a small crack in the wall. The sun was rising, casting long shadows across the desert. She saw smoke far in the distance, maybe from another battle, maybe from their team. She didn't know. Raynor shifted on the ground. "You all right?" She turned to him. "I'm fine. I think the drones moved on, but we can't risk going out yet." Raynor tried to sit up, groaning. "We need to move before they come back." "You need to heal first," she said firmly, kneeling beside him again. "Please, let me finish treating your wounds." He didn't argue. He leaned back and Kailari continued her work. Her healing touch wasn't just science. It was part of her race's gift, energy passed from healer to patient. Most of her kind used it only in special cases. But to her, this was special. Raynor had protected her without hesitation. Now it was her turn. and she made a silent vow again if it took days or weeks, she would heal every wound he carried. Because he didn't just shield her from laser fire, he showed her what real courage looked like. Days passed in the cold and quiet tunnel. Outside, the wind carried dust across the broken landscape. Inside, Kalari stayed awake most of the time, watching over Raynor. His wounds were serious, but her healing hands and steady care helped him slowly get stronger. Each morning, she checked his side where the laser blast had hit. The burn marks were deep and the damage to his muscle was bad. But her gentle energy touched the skin, closing the wounds little by little. Raynor did not say much. He was tired from pain and rest. But his eyes watched Kalari closely. He saw how much she cared, how she fought to keep him alive. One evening, as the pale orange light from the setting sun came through the tunnel entrance, Raynor spoke. "Why did you become a medic, Kalari?" She looked at him, surprised by the question. For a moment she hesitated. "My people, we were at war with humans once," she said softly. "Many were hurt on both sides. I saw families broken. I saw children who lost their homes. I wanted to stop that pain." Raynor listened carefully. "I chose to be a healer," she continued. "Not a warrior. But when I met you and your team last year, everything changed." Raynor smiled faintly. "Changed how?" Kalari's violet eyes grew distant. "You saved my brother during a fight. You risked your life for someone like me? An alien. I never expected humans to care like that." He nodded. "That's how humans are. We protect those who can't protect themselves." She smiled slightly, but sadness touched her face. "Back then I hated your kind. But you showed me kindness I never thought possible." Raynor reached out his hand and held hers. "Now we fight together." Kalari squeezed his hand gently. Yes, the moment was quiet and full of unspoken promises. In the middle of a dangerous war zone, two souls connected by trust and care. As night fell, Kalari continued her healing. She used the special energy her people carried, the pulse of light that soothed pain and mended flesh. It drained her, but Raynor's life was worth every drop. Sometimes she whispered her old healing chants. They sounded strange to Raynor, but brought comfort to both. Outside, the wind screamed louder, as if warning them that danger was near. But inside the tunnel, Kalari's hands glowed softly, a shield of hope against the dark. One afternoon, while Kalari rested for a moment, Raynor tried to sit up. The pain hit him sharply, and he groaned. "Easy," Kalari said, quickly helping him back down. "I hate feeling weak," Raynor admitted. Kalari smiled. "Strength is not only in fighting. Sometimes it's in letting others help." Raynor looked at her, understanding deep in his eyes. Their quiet moments were rare. Outside, the war raged on. But inside, they found peace. Kalari's thoughts drifted to their team. She wondered if they were still searching, if help was coming soon. The distress beacon she sent still had no reply. "We can't stay forever," Raynor said one day. "But I'm not ready to leave yet." "You need to get better," Kalari insisted. "Without you, I'm alone here," he smiled weakly. "I'm not going anywhere. You saved me, I owe you my life." Kalari shook her head. "No debts. Only promises." As the days passed, Kalari's feelings grew stronger. She admired Raynor's courage and kindness. She saw a future beyond war and fear. One night she told him a secret. "My people believe healing is a sacred gift. It is not just about medicine. It is about hope and trust. When I heal you, I give you part of my soul." Raynor looked surprised but smiled. "Then you've given me a lot." Kalari laughed softly, the first real laugh since the ambush. "You saved me with your shield." She said, "Now I'm healing you with everything I have." Their bond grew beyond words. Two different worlds connected by bravery and care. The war was far away, but here in this dark tunnel, they fought a different battle, one to save each other's lives. Kalari's promise was clear. No matter what came next, she would be there. For Raynor. Just as he had been there for her. Days turned into weeks, but the cold tunnel no longer felt like a prison. Instead, it became a small world of safety for Raynor and Kalari. Outside, the dust storms continued and distant battles echoed under Velkara's pale alien skies. But inside, a quiet peace grew between the two. Raynor's wounds were healing well. The burn marks had faded, and the pain had lessened. With Kailari's careful care and her race's special healing energy, he was almost whole again. Now he was slowly learning to move, stretch, and regain his strength. One morning, Raynor opened his eyes to find Kailari sitting beside him, gently brushing his hair back. The soft light of dawn made her pale blue skin glow softly, and her violet eyes held a calm warmth. "How are you feeling?" she asked with a smile. "Better, thanks to you," he said quietly. "I owe you more than just my life." Kailari shook her head. "No debts. You saved me first?" He laughed softly, the sound tired but genuine. "I guess we saved each other." They shared a quiet moment, listening to the distant wind and the soft hum of the medpack charging Dot as days passed. Raynor and Kailari grew closer. They talked about many things, about their homes, their people, and their dreams for a future without war. Raynor told stories of Earth, of green forests and wide oceans. Kailari spoke of La Rosa, a peaceful planet where healing was a sacred art. One afternoon, Raynor asked, "Can you teach me that healing energy of yours?" Kailari smiled but shook her head. "It is a gift, not a skill. It comes from inside. I can guide you, but only your soul can learn it." Raynor looked thoughtful. "I want to try." For a moment, Kailari hesitated. Then she reached out and took his hand. "Close your eyes. Feel your breath." "Let your heart slow," Raynor obeyed. He felt her energy pulse softly through his fingers, a warm light that seemed to calm his whole body. "Now, imagine that light spreading inside you," Kailari whispered. Raynor focused. Slowly, a gentle warmth grew in his chest. It spread down his arm and into his hand. "Good," Kailari said. "Now, try to send that warmth to your wounds." He moved his other hand to his side and concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small tingling feeling moved through his skin. Kailari nodded. "You have the seed. With time, you will learn." Raynor opened his eyes and smiled. "Thanks to you." Outside, the sun set behind purple clouds, casting a strange light over the planet. The sky was different from Earth, but beautiful in its own way. One evening, Kailari prepared a simple meal from the supplies they had. The food was strange, too. Raynor's taste soft and sweet, but he ate with gratitude. "You have to keep your strength up," she said softly. He nodded. "I want to be ready when help comes." Kailari looked out the tunnel entrance. The silence was heavy. The distress beacon still had no reply. "We are alone here," she whispered. Raynor reached for her hand. "Not alone." They sat together, sharing the warmth of friendship in a cold world. As the days went by, Raynor tried to walk more, leaning on Kailari for support. His muscles were weak, but his spirit was strong. One morning, as he stood by the entrance, he looked up at the alien, stars shining bright above. The sky was full of colors he had never seen. Kailari joined him. "The stars watch over us," she said. Raynor smiled. "I never thought I'd find peace on a place like Velkhara." Kailari touched his arm. "Sometimes peace is not a place. It is a person." Raynor looked at her, understanding in his eyes. Their bond grew deeper with each passing day. They were no longer just soldier and medic. They were friends, allies, and something more, but danger was never far. One night as they slept, the faint sound of mechanical whirring echoed outside. Kailari woke first, alert and tense. "Drones," she whispered. Raynor stirred, reaching for his weapon. Kailari took a deep breath. "We must prepare." They worked quickly, setting up makeshift defenses from broken crates and metal scraps. Kailari's hands glowed softly as she used her healing energy to strengthen Raynor's tired body. When the drones attacked, Raynor stood strong beside Kailari. Together, they fought with a fierce determination born from trust and survival. The battle was hard, but they held their ground. After the fight, they returned to the tunnel, breathing heavy but victorious. Kailari looked at Raynor with pride. "You're stronger than I thought." Raynor smiled tiredly. "Because you healed. Me, because you never gave up." The stars outside twinkled like silent witnesses to their struggle. Under the alien skies of Velkhara, two unlikely friends had found hope, strength, and a reason to keep fighting. The sun hung low in the dusty sky of Valkara, casting long shadows over the ruined landscape. Inside the narrow tunnel where Raynor and Kalari had taken shelter, a quiet tension filled the air. They had fought off the enemy drones before, but now the danger was growing closer and more urgent. Kalari stood near the entrance, her pale blue skin faintly shining in the dim light. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any signs of movement. Raynor sat against the wall, still weak but determined. His body ached from the days of healing and the recent battle, yet his spirit refused to break. "We can't stay here forever," Raynor said, his voice steady but soft. "Those drones will come back?" Kalari nodded, her hands tightening into fists. "I know. We need a way to defend ourselves better, or find a way out." Raynor looked at her and smiled faintly. "We work together, we can do this." Their bond had grown strong through hardship and trust. They were more than just soldier and medic now. They were partners in survival. Suddenly, the faint hum of engines echoed from outside. Kalari's head snapped up. "They're coming. More drones." Raynor grabbed his weapon, testing the grip with shaky hands. "We have to prepare." Kalari quickly moved to gather scraps of metal and broken parts from their small supplies. Together, they began setting traps near the tunnel entrance. Raynor explained how to use debris as barriers, while Kalari used her knowledge of the drone's technology to guess their attack patterns as they worked. Raynor leaned close to Kalari. "You sure you want to do this? I can handle the fight." Kalari shook her head. "No, I won't let you face this alone." "I can help. We both must survive." Raynor smiled with respect. "Then let's do it." The sun dipped below the horizon and darkness crept over the land. The air grew colder and a strange silence settled. They waited. Minutes later, the first drone appeared, hovering low and fast. Its red sensors glowed as it scanned for targets. Behind it, more drones followed like shadows. Raynor took a deep breath and stepped forward, his weapon ready. Kalari's hands glowed softly, her healing energy charging inside her. The drones opened fire. Raynor raised his shield generator, blocking laser blasts that scorched the air. Kalari stayed close, using her glowing hands to send waves of healing energy to Raynor. The warmth flowed through him, easing the pain and renewing his strength. One drone dove towards Kalari, its weapons aimed directly at her. Raynor saw it and shouted, "Kalari, move!" But Kalari stood her ground. She raised her hands, focusing her energy into a bright pulse. The light hit the drone, causing it to freeze and then fall to the ground. Powerless. Raynor was amazed. "Your power is incredible." Kalari smiled, though her face was serious. "It is the gift of my people. But I need to be careful. It tires me quickly." More drones surrounded them. Raynor fired rapidly, using his training to keep them at bay. Kalari supported him, healing his small wounds as they appeared and disrupting the drone's attacks with her energy pulses. They fought as one. Suddenly, a drone broke through their defenses and charged at Kalari. Raynor saw it just in time. He threw himself between the drone and Kalari. Taking a heavy blast on his shoulder, pain exploded through Raynor's body, but he did not fall. With his free hand, he shot the drone down. Kalari rushed to him, her energy flowing to heal the new wound. "We can't keep this up," Raynor gasped. "We need to end this." Kalari looked around and spotted the drone leader, a larger, faster machine directing the attack. "If we take out their leader, the others will fall," she said. Raynor nodded. "Cover me." Kalari concentrated her energy, sending a bright beam of light towards the leader drone. It faltered but did not stop. Raynor charged forward, dodging laser fire. He leapt onto the drone and smashed its control panel with his weapon. Sparks flew as the machine began to shut down. The other drones hesitated, and then retreated. Silence returned. Raynor collapsed to the ground, breathing hard. Kalari held his hand. "You were amazing," Raynor smiled weakly. "Only because you kept me alive?" They rested together, knowing this fight was won, but the war was far from over. Outside the tunnel, the first stars appeared in the alien sky. The light was cold but beautiful. Kalari looked up. "We survived another day." Raynor squeezed her hand. Because we stood together. The days stretched on and hope began to flicker like a distant star for Raynor and Kalari. They had survived ambush, healed wounds, and fought back enemies, but the question of rescue still hung heavy in the air. The distress beacon Kalari sent long ago had been their only link to the outside world. Yet no response came, one morning. As the dim light of dawn seeped into their shelter, a new sound cut through the silence, the low hum of engines approaching. Kalari's heart quickened. She moved to the tunnel entrance, her eyes wide with cautious hope. Raynor sat nearby, his strength slowly returning each day, though his body still carried the marks of the battle. He noticed the change in her and followed her gaze in the distance. A human dropship descended slowly, its silhouette sharp against the brightening sky. It was a small craft, but to them it meant everything. Kalari's voice trembled. "Help is here." Raynor struggled to his feet, using Kalari's steady arm for support. "We have to signal them." Kalari nodded and pulled out a small flare gun from her pack. She fired it into the sky. The red flare soared upward, painting the dust in its glow. The dropship responded. Changing course toward their location. Inside the craft, soldiers readied their gear. The pilot checked the coordinates and radioed their team. They had been searching for Raynor and Kalari since the distress signal was detected weeks ago, back on Velkara. The dropship landed with a soft thud near the tunnel entrance. The hatch opened and soldiers rushed out. Weapons ready but cautious, Kalari stepped forward, her eyes shining with relief. "We're here," she called. Raynor followed slowly. Each step a reminder of his injuries, but also of his will to live. The soldiers moved quickly to assess the situation. Medical teams took over Raynor's care, checking his wounds and stabilizing his condition further. Kalari stood by, watching as the people she had waited so long for finally arrived. One of the medics approached Kalari. "You did an amazing job keeping him alive," she said with respect. Kalari smiled faintly. "He protected me first. I only returned the favor." Raynor, though weak, managed a smile as he looked at Kalari. "She saved me more than once," he said quietly. The leader of the rescue team stepped forward. "We have secured the area. The rogue drones are destroyed, but the planet is still dangerous. We'll get you both to safety." Kalari and Raynor exchanged a glance filled with unspoken emotions. Their time together had changed them both. The bond formed in the darkness of Velkara was stronger than any words. As they boarded the dropship, Kalari took one last look at the alien sky, the place where they had survived, fought, and healed. She knew the scars of this place would stay with them, but so would the hope it gave. Inside the ship, Raynor was carefully lifted onto a medical bed. Kalari sat beside him, holding his hand. "Thank you," Raynor whispered. Kalari shook her head. "No thanks needed. You showed me the true meaning of courage." The ship's engines roared to life as they lifted off, leaving the dusty ground behind. As they flew away from Velkara, the stars outside seemed brighter. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, hope filled their hearts. Together they had faced fire and fear. Together they would face whatever came next. And that was enough. The stars outside the ship's window twinkled softly as the medical craft sped through space. Inside, Raynor lay resting on a narrow bed, his breathing steady and calm. The sharp pain from his wounds had faded to a dull ache. Kalari sat close by, her hand gently holding his. Weeks had passed since they escaped Velkara. Now, in the safety of the Allied base, healing continued, but this time with more care and hope. Raynor opened his eyes and smiled faintly at Kalari. "I'm getting stronger." She returned the smile, her violet eyes warm. "You are. But healing is more than fixing wounds." He looked at her curiously. Kalari continued, "It is about trust. About standing by each other when the world feels cold and dark." Raynor nodded slowly. "You stayed with me when no one else could. You never gave up." "That is my oath," Kalari said softly. "Not just as a medic, but as a friend." The base was busy with activity outside the quiet room. Soldiers trained. Machines hummed and the future of the war was still uncertain. But inside this small space, peace grew. Raynor turned his head to see the badges on Kalari's uniform. You deserve honors for what you did, Kalari shook her head. No medals. For me, my reward is seeing you heal. He took her hand tighter. Then I have one question. Kalari raised her eyebrows, waiting. When this is over, will you stay by my side? Her heart skipped. I want to. They both knew that the war might last long, and danger would not disappear easily. But they had found something rare: trust, friendship, and hope. As the days passed, Raynor grew stronger. He walked again, slowly at first, then with more confidence. Kalari helped him, teaching him how to focus his own healing energy. He learned to use the gift she shared, blending human will and Larosan power, one afternoon as they walked through the base gardens. Raynor looked at Kalari. I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who sees beyond the armor and the war. Kalari smiled, brushing a lock of blue hair behind her ear. You showed me what it means to protect, without fear, to care without limits. Their friendship had grown into something deeper, a bond built from struggle and kindness. One evening, the base commander called them both into the council room. Your actions saved lives, he said. You are a symbol of what our alliance can achieve. Kalari and Raynor exchanged proud glances. They had become more than survivors. They were a beacon of hope. As the council spoke of peace and war, Kalari whispered to Raynor, no matter what happens next, we face it together. Raynor squeezed her hand. Together. Outside, the stars shone brightly over the galaxy, full of possibilities, and in the quiet moments between battles, two souls who had faced death found healing, trust, and the promise of a future one they would build side by side.